December 18, 1942, Port Moresby Airfield, New Guinea. Major Paul Pappy Gunn stood in the maintenance hangar, staring at a wall covered with reconnaissance photographs of intact Japanese cargo ships. Each image represented tons of supplies reaching enemy garrisons, thousands of Japanese soldiers being reinforced, and American ground troops dying because the Air Force couldn't stop the convoys. In 4 months of operations, the 5th Air Force had sunk exactly 3 cargo vessels, while losing 18 B-25 Mitchell bombers and their crews to Japanese fighters and anti-aircraft fire. The mathematics were devastating. For every enemy ship destroyed, 6 American aircraft were lost. General George Kenney had been brutally clear in his last briefing. "Gentlemen, we're losing the logistics war in the Southwest Pacific. The Japanese are resupplying their forces faster than we can interdict them. At this rate, we'll run out of aircraft before they run out of ships." But Gunn refused to accept that the B-25 Mitchell was the wrong tool for the job. Something was fundamentally broken in how they were using it, not with the aircraft itself. In the next 72 hours, a maintenance officer with no formal engineering degree, a frustrated attack pilot, and a gunnery sergeant would revolutionize antiship warfare to develop a weapons system that would terrorize the Imperial Japanese Navy and transform the B-25 from a struggling medium bomber into the most lethal ship killer in the Pacific theater. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. By mid-December 1942, the air war over the Southwest Pacific had reached a critical impasse. American forces controlled southern New Guinea, but Japanese garrisons at Lae, Salamaua, and Rabaul were being constantly reinforced by sea. Every night, Japanese cargo ships escorted by destroyers and covered by Zero fighters would slip down from Rabaul, unload troops and supplies, and disappear before American aircraft could respond effectively. The 5th Air Force had been trying to stop these convoys using conventional medium-altitude bombing, B-25. Mitchells would approach at 8,000 to 12,000 feet, release their bombs, and hope for hits on moving ships. The results were catastrophic in their futility. Between August 15th and December 15th, 1942, American B-25 squadrons had flown 127 antiship missions. The score was grimly one-sided. Japanese ships sunk 3 freighters totaling 9,000 tons. American aircraft lost 18 B-25 seconds destroyed, 31 damaged beyond immediate repair. Crew casualties: 108 men killed or missing, 47 wounded. The kill ratio was worse than 6, 1 inch Japan's favor, and the tonnage ratio was even more humiliating. The Japanese were landing approximately 15,000 tons of supplies per week. The Americans were destroying less than 750 tons per week. The enemy was winning the logistics battle by a factor of 20 to 1. Captain Edward "Ed" Larner had flown 11 anti-ship missions. He'd watched 4 ships in his squadron go down to Japanese anti-aircraft fire or Zero attacks. After a mission on December 12th, where his entire 6-plane formation failed to score a single hit on a slow-moving freighter, he threw his mission notes across the briefing room. "This is insane," he told his squadron commander. "We're dropping bombs from 2 miles up on ships that can maneuver. The bombs take 18 seconds to fall. In 18 seconds, a ship traveling at 12 knots moves 360 feet. We're not bombing ships, we're bombing where ships used to be." The problem was threefold, and every experienced pilot knew it. First, high-altitude bombing of moving ships was nearly impossible. Even the Norden bomb sight, accurate against stationary targets, couldn't predict a ship's evasive maneuvers. Second, medium-altitude approaches gave Japanese anti-aircraft gunners and Zero fighters plenty of time to engage. Third, even when the bombs hit near a ship, they often failed to cause fatal damage. Cargo ships were tougher than anyone had anticipated. Major Paul Gunn understood this better than anyone. At 42 years old, Gunn was ancient by combat pilot standards. He'd been a naval aviator in World War I, spent 2 decades as a civilian pilot in the Philippines, and rejoined the service when war broke out. His official position was maintenance officer for the 3rd Attack Group, but everyone knew Gunn as the man who could fix anything, modify anything, and improve anything. Gunn had been studying the antiship problem with an engineer's obsession. He'd interviewed every surviving pilot, examined every damaged B-25, and analyzed gun camera footage from dozens of missions. His conclusions were radical and would require abandoning nearly everything the Air Force believed about bomber operations. On the evening of December 17th, Gunn was in Hangar 7 with Master Sergeant Jack Smokey Stover, the group's chief armourer. Spread across a workbench were technical drawings, ammunition specifications, and photographs of B-25 nose sections. Gunn pointed to a reconnaissance photo of a Japanese convoy. "Smokey, look at this image. What do you see?" Stover studied the photograph. "I see 6 cargo ships, 2 destroyers, probably a couple hundred Japanese sailors who are going to deliver supplies to kill our guys at Buna." "Look closer at the ships themselves. What's their armor?" "Cargo ships don't have armor, Major. They're merchant vessels. Steel hulls, maybe half-inch to three-quarter-inch plate on the larger ones." Gunn tapped the photograph. "Exactly. These aren't warships. They're thin-skinned cargo vessels. We've been trying to sink them with 500-pound general-purpose bombs dropped from 10,000 feet. But what if we approached the problem differently?" He pulled out another set of photographs. These showed damaged B-25 seconds returning from missions. Several had nose sections shredded by Japanese fighter attacks. Every one of these aircraft was attacked from the front quarter. "The Zero pilots know our nose armament is weak, just one. 30 caliber machine gun operated by the bombardier. So they attack from 12 o'clock level, where we can't hit back effectively. But what if we could?" Stover was beginning to understand. "You want to add forward-firing guns to the nose." "Not just add guns, I want to turn the B-25 into a flying gun platform. Look at these specifications." Gunn unrolled a schematic of the B-25C model currently in theatre. The bombardier sits in a glazed nose with a Norden bomb sight. That entire nose section weighs 340 pounds, including the bombardier's position and the single 30 calories gun. What if we removed all of that, the bomb sight, the bombardier's station, the glass nose, and replaced it with guns? "Nothing but guns." Stover's eyes widened. "How many guns are you thinking, sir?" 8. 50 caliber machine guns. All fixed, all firing forward, all synchronized to converge at 300 yards. The sergeant let out a low whistle. "Major, that's more forward-firing firepower than any fighter aircraft in the theatre. That's more than a P-38 Lightning. You're talking about turning a medium bomber into a gunship." "Exactly. And here's the second part. We don't bomb from 10,000 feet anymore. We come in at wave top level 50 feet or lower. We approach the ships head-on at 250 miles per hour. At 300 yards, just 3 football fields, we open fire with all 8 guns. At that range, firing 4,800 rounds per minute combined, we can put 1,200 bullets into a target in 15 seconds. Stover did the mental calculation. By 50 caliber armor-piercing incendiary rounds against unarmored cargo ships at point-blank range. Major, you'd cut them in half. That's the idea. And once we're past the superstructure, the bombardier, or rather, the pilot now can release skip bombs. We've seen skip bombing work in training. If you release a bomb with delayed fuse at 200 feet altitude while traveling 250 miles per hour, the bomb skips across the water like a stone and impacts the ship at the waterline. Combined with the gun damage, it should be catastrophic. The concept was revolutionary, but it contradicted every doctrine the Army Air Forces had developed. Bombers were supposed to bomb from altitude, where they were safe from ground fire. Fighters were supposed to strafe. Mixing these roles seemed like suicide. Captain Lana arrived at the hangar at 2,100 hours. He'd been summoned by Gunn with an urgent message. "I have something to show you that will change how we fight this war." When Lana saw the drawings and understood what Gunn was proposing, his first reaction was disbelief. "Pappy, you want to fly B-25 seconds at 50 feet? Against ships with anti-aircraft guns? That's not tactics, that's suicide. Gunn's response was measured but intense. Ed, listen to me. What's our current loss rate on antiship missions? About 14% per mission. And our success rate? About 2% of bombs hit targets. So, we're already committing suicide, just doing it slowly and ineffectively. What I'm proposing is counterintuitive, but think it through. When we attack from 10,000 feet, every gun on every ship can engage us. We're exposed for 3 to 4 minutes during the approach and bomb run. At 50 feet altitude, heavy anti-aircraft guns can't depress low enough to track us. Their optimal engagement envelope is 3,000 to 15,000 feet, exactly where we've been operating. At wave-top level, only light machine guns can engage, and we'll be moving too fast for effective tracking. Lana studied the tactical diagrams. What about Zeros? Zeros are optimized for high-altitude dogfighting. They're dangerous above 10,000 feet. Below 5,000 feet, they lose their performance advantage. And if we're coming in at deck level at 250 miles per hour, they can't dive on us. There's no altitude for them to use. They'd have to chase us in level flight, and with 8 forward firing, 50 cals, any Zero that gets in front of us will be shredded. Stover added his perspective. Captain, I've examined every B-25 that's come back shot up. The damage is always from above or from frontal attacks where we couldn't fire back effectively. If we mount 850s in the nose, nothing can survive a head-on pass against us. Nothing. Lana walked around the hangar, thinking. Everything about this violated his training. Bombers didn't fly at wave-top altitude. Bombers didn't strafe. Bombers didn't hunt ships like fighters attacking ground targets. But the current approach was failing catastrophically, and American soldiers were dying because of it. How long would it take to modify a B-25 to test this? Gunn smiled for the first time in days. 2. If General Kenny approves it, Smokey and I can have a prototype ready in 72 hours. And if he doesn't approve it? Then we do it anyway, and ask for forgiveness later. But I think the General will understand. He's been asking for solutions. We're giving him one. The next morning, December 18th, Gunn and Lana presented their proposal to General George Kenny at 5th Air Force Headquarters. Kenny had a reputation as an innovator who valued results over regulations. He listened to the entire briefing without interrupting. When they finished, Kenny stood and walked to the window overlooking Port Moresby Harbour. Major Gunn, what you're describing has never been done before. The Air Force doesn't have doctrine for this kind of operation. Washington will think I've lost my mind. We are. Kenny turned back to face them. If this works, it could change the entire dynamic of the campaign. If it fails, I'm putting air crews at even greater risk with experimental tactics. I need to know, can you make this work? Gunn's answer was immediate. Sir, I guarantee that 8 50 caliber machine guns firing at a cargo ship from 300 yards will cause more damage than dropping bombs from 10,000 feet with a 2% hit rate. The physics are undeniable. Whether the modified aircraft can survive the approach is the question, but our analysis suggests low-altitude approach drastically reduces our vulnerability to the weapons systems the Japanese actually have on these convoys. Kenny made his decision. You have 72 hours to modify one B-25. We'll do a live-fire test against a hulked cargo ship off the coast. If the results are promising, I'll authorize combat trials. If the results are marginal, we go back to what we're doing now. Understood? Yes, sir. One more thing, Gunn. I'm holding you personally responsible for this. If you're wrong, and I lose crews testing your theory, that's on both of us. Don't be wrong. I won't be, sir. Gunn, stover, and a team of 12 mechanics began the most radical modification ever attempted on a B-25 Mitchell in theatre. The first step was removing everything from the nose section, the bombardier's station, the Norden bomb sight, all the glazing. The entire transparent nose was cut away, leaving just the aluminum frame. Weight saved, 340 pounds. Next came the guns, 8 50 caliber M. Purred 50 caliber M2. Browning machine guns were mounted in 2 rows of 4, all fixed to fire directly forward. The mounting had to be precise. All 8 guns needed to converge their fire at exactly 300 yards, creating a cone of destruction approximately 10 feet in diameter at that range. The ammunition system was the most complex challenge. Each gun needed to feed reliably at 600 rounds per minute. With 8 guns firing, that meant 4,800 rounds per minute combined. The ammunition boxes were mounted in the former bomb bay, with belt feeds running forward to each gun. Total ammunition load, 4,000 rounds, enough for 30 seconds of continuous fire. Stover worked on the synchronization mechanisms. Major, at full rate of fire, these 8 guns will generate approximately 2,400 pounds of recoil force. The airframe has to absorb that. The B-25 was overbuilt to begin with. She can take it. What about cooling? At sustained fire, the barrels will overheat in 15 to 20 seconds, but for the attack profile you're planning short, violent bursts, it should be fine. By the afternoon of December 20th, the modified B-25 was ready. The nose section was no longer transparent glass. It was solid metal, studded with 8 menacing gun barrels. The aircraft looked aggressive, predatory, completely unlike any bomber anyone had ever seen. Gunn stood back and examined their work. She looks angry. Lana had arrived to inspect the modification. She looks like she wants to kill something. Does she have a name? Not yet. Let's see if she works first. The live fire test was scheduled for December 21st. The target was a 4,000-ton Japanese cargo ship that had run aground and been abandoned near Cape Ward Hunt. The vessel was a perfect test platform, actual Japanese construction, actual cargo ship dimensions, sitting at anchor. General Kenny attended the test personally, along with a dozen staff officers and intelligence analysts. Everyone wanted to see if Gunn's radical theory would work, or if it was just the desperate gamble of a maintenance officer who'd been in theatre too long. Lana would fly the modified B-25, with Gunn as co-pilot. A B-17 flying at 5,000 feet would film the entire attack with a gun camera. At 0900 hours, the modified B-25 took off. Lana brought the aircraft down to 50 feet above the water, exactly as planned for combat operations. The ocean rushed by beneath them, close enough that spray occasionally misted the windscreen. Gunn watched the target ship appear on the horizon. There she is, just like we practiced. Approach from the bow quarter, guns at 400 yards, full trigger at 300. Lana's hands were steady on the controls. The B-25 accelerated to 250 miles per hour. The ship grew larger in the windscreen, filling their entire forward view. 400 yards, 350. At exactly 300 yards, Lana pressed the trigger. 8 50 caliber machine guns opened fire simultaneously. The sound was unlike anything either pilot had ever experienced, a continuous, ear-shattering roar that made the entire aircraft vibrate. Tracers streamed forward in a solid river of fire. The effect on the target ship was instantaneous and catastrophic. The bow section of the cargo ship disintegrated. Metal panels were ripped away. Superstructure collapsed. Ammunition stored on deck detonated in secondary explosions. Lana held the trigger down for 6 seconds, 800 rounds fired. The cone of destruction swept across the entire forward section of the ship. Then they were past, pulling up and banking away. Did you see that? Lana's voice was shaking with adrenaline. Pappy, we cut that ship in half. Gunn was already calculating. 8 guns, 6 seconds of fire, at 300 yards range. The concentration of impact was even better than predicted. They circled back for the observers to see the damage. The cargo ship's bow section was completely destroyed. Dozens of holes punctured the hull at and above the waterline. If the ship had been under power, it would have been sinking. Back at Port Moresby, General Kenny examined the gun camera footage in silence. The film showed the entire attack from the B-17's perspective, the B-25 approaching at wave-top level, the sudden eruption of tracer fire, the cargo ship's bow section disintegrating under the concentrated fire. Kenny rewound the film and watched it again. Then, a third time. Finally, he turned to Gunn. "Major, how many B-25 seconds can you modify?" "Sir, with the resources we have now, maybe 2 per week." "Not good enough. I want every available B-25 inches theatre modified to this configuration. I want workshops at every major base. I want this to be our primary anti-ship weapon within 30 days. Sir, we'll need authorization from Washington for modifications this extensive. I'll handle Washington. You handle the modifications. As of this moment, the commerce destruction campaign in the Southwest Pacific just changed completely. The Japanese have no idea what's about to hit them. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The authorization came through on December 23, 1942. General Kenny's message to Washington had been characteristically blunt. Have developed new anti-ship attack method using modified B-25 seconds. Initial test results show 100% target destruction. Request immediate authorization for theater-wide implementation. Japanese convoy operations must be stopped before they reinforce Lai and Rabaul. Time is critical. General Henry Hap Arnold's response arrived within 18 hours. Approved. You have full authority to modify aircraft as needed. Washington expects results. By December 26, 3 modification centers were operational: Port Moresby, Townsville, and Charters Towers in Australia. Gunn had distributed detailed technical specifications to all 3 locations. Each center had teams working in 12-hour shifts. The goal was ambitious: convert 30 B-25 seconds to the new strafer configuration within 4 weeks. But Gunn wasn't satisfied with just the nose guns. On December 27th, he gathered his modification teams for a new briefing. "Gentlemen, we've solved the forward firepower problem. Now we need to address defensive firepower and bomb delivery." He displayed photographs of standard B-25 configurations. "Current defensive armament is inadequate. We have single 50 caliber guns in waist positions, but the fields of fire are limited. I want to add 2 additional 50 caliber guns in blister mounts on each side of the fuselage, just aft of the cockpit. This gives us overlapping fields of fire covering the beam and rear quarters." Technical Sergeant William Bill Morrison raised a hand. "Major, that's adding significant weight. What about performance?" "We'll compensate by removing equipment we don't need anymore. The Norden bomb site is gone. The bombardier position is gone. We're stripping out 400 pounds of equipment we no longer use. The additional guns and ammunition add about 350 pounds. Net result is we're actually slightly lighter than standard configuration and infinitely more lethal." The second innovation involved ordnance. Captain Lana had been working with the group's munitions officer on skip bombing techniques. The concept was simple but required precision. Approach at 50 feet altitude, release bombs with delayed fuses at 200 to 250 yards from target. The bombs skip across the water surface and impact the ship's hull at or below the waterline. "Skip bombing isn't new," Lana explained to assembled pilots on December 28. "The British have experimented with it. What's new is combining it with strafing. We approach head-on at wave-top level. At 400 yards, we open fire with the nose guns. We walk fire across the target's superstructure, bridge, and deck. At 200 yards, we release skip bombs, usually 2 500-pounders, with 4-second delay fuses. Then we brake left or right and exit at full throttle while our waist gunners engage any vessels trying to track us. A young pilot, Lieutenant James Jim Murphy, asked the question everyone was thinking. "Sir, coming in that low, that close, what's our vulnerability to anti-aircraft fire?" Lana's answer came from experience. "Less than you'd think. I've studied Japanese anti-aircraft capabilities extensively. Their cargo ships typically carry 4 to 8 25mm automatic cannons. These weapons have an effective range of 1,500 to 2,500 yards and optimal engagement altitude of 2,000 to 8,000 feet. When we come in at 50 feet, we're below their optimal engagement envelope. By the time their gunners acquire us and adjust fire, we're already on top of them. Our approach speed 250 miles per hour means we're exposed to their fire for less than 20 seconds total. Compared to conventional bombing approaches, where we're exposed for 3 to 4 minutes, the vulnerability window is drastically reduced." "What about destroyers?" Murphy pressed. "They carry much heavier anti-aircraft armament." "Destroyers are the primary threat," Lana acknowledged. "That's why target selection is critical. We attack cargo ships first. Destroyers have to maneuver to engage us, which takes them out of position to protect the convoy. Once cargo ships are burning or sinking, destroyers typically withdraw rather than continue engaging. They're escorts, not combatants in this context." Major Gunn added his perspective. "Gentlemen, I won't lie to you. This is low-level attack work, and it's inherently dangerous. But the mathematics favor us dramatically. Under current tactics, we lose 14% of aircraft per mission, with a 2% success rate. The test attack against the grounded ship showed we can achieve near 100% hit probability with the new configuration. Even if our loss rate stays constant, which I don't believe it will, we're increasing effectiveness by 50 times. In reality, I believe our losses will decrease significantly because we're spending less time in the enemy's engagement zone." The first combat-modified B-25 seconds were ready by January 2nd, Ichenjobai-Sashasan. 6 aircraft had been fully converted, 8 forward-firing, 50 caliber guns, additional blister guns for defense, skip bombing equipment, and complete crew training on the new tactics. General Kenny scheduled the first combat mission for January 5th, 1943. Intelligence had identified a high-value target, a 6-ship Japanese convoy departing Rabaul, heading south toward Leh with reinforcements and supplies. The convoy consisted of 4 cargo ships and 2 destroyer escorts. Estimated cargo, 8,000 tons of ammunition, food, fuel, and 1,200 Japanese infantry troops. The mission briefing on the morning of January 5th was attended by every pilot in the group. This would be the operational proof of concept. If the modified B-25 seconds performed as predicted, it would validate Gunn's entire tactical revolution. If they failed, it would be a disaster that would set back the entire campaign. Captain Lana would lead the strike flight. 6 modified B-25 seconds, call signs Reaper 1 through Reaper 6. Major Gunn wanted desperately to fly the mission, but Kenny had forbidden it. "Pappy, you're too valuable. If this goes badly, I need you alive to fix whatever went wrong." At 0645 hours, the 6 Reapers lifted off from Port Moresby. They flew north at low altitude, skimming the ocean surface to avoid Japanese radar detection. The flight plan called for a 200-mile approach, timed to intercept the convoy in the Vitiaz Strait at approximately 0830 hours. Weather conditions were ideal: clear skies, excellent visibility, light winds. At 0815 hours, Lieutenant Murphy in Reaper 4 spotted the convoy. "Lead, this is 4. Contact bearing 350, range approximately 20 miles. Count 6 vessels in formation," Lana acknowledged. "All Reaper elements, this is lead. Target confirmed. Descend to attack altitude. Maintain radio silence until weapons free. Execute as briefed." The 6 B-25 seconds dropped to 50 feet above the water. At this altitude, they were invisible to the convoy until very close range. The pilots spread into attack formation, 3 pairs, each pair targeting separate cargo ships. The destroyers would be bypassed. Initially, cargo vessels were the priority. At 15 miles, the convoy became visible on the horizon. Lana could make out the distinctive silhouettes, 4 cargo ships in the center, destroyers flanking them on port and starboard sides. The ships were in standard cruising formation, making approximately 12 knots. At 10 miles, Lana began his approach run. Reaper elements, weapons hot, attack speed, full throttle. The B-25 seconds accelerated to 280 miles per hour. The ocean surface blurred beneath them. The lead cargo ship grew rapidly in Lana's windscreen, a 4,000-ton freighter, low in the water, obviously heavily loaded. At 5 miles, the Japanese spotted them. Lana saw signal flags being raised, saw the cargo ships beginning evasive maneuvers. Too late. The Reapers were closing at over 4 miles per minute, 1,000 yards, 800. 600. At 400 yards, Lana could see individual Japanese sailors on the deck, see the 25mm anti-aircraft guns swinging toward him. He squeezed the trigger. 8. 50 caliber machine guns erupted. The sound was overwhelming even through the headset. Tracers arced across the water in a solid stream of fire. The effect on the cargo ship was instantaneous and apocalyptic. The forward gun positions disintegrated. The bridge structure shattered. Japanese sailors were swept off the deck like leaves in a hurricane. Ammunition stored on deck began cooking off in chains of explosions. Fire erupted from multiple locations. Lana held the trigger for 8 seconds. 1,100 rounds fired. The cargo ship was burning from bow to midships. At 200 yards, he released 2 500-pound bombs with 4-second delay fuses. The bombs skipped across the water surface exactly as designed. The first bomb struck the ship's hull 3 feet below the waterline, penetrated the steel plate, and detonated inside the cargo hold. The explosion was massive, a tower of fire and debris erupting from the ship's center. The second bomb hit slightly aft, blowing a hole in the engine room. Lana banked hard right, clearing the ship's superstructure by less than 100 feet. His waist gunners opened fire on a destroyer attempting to track their exit, forcing the Japanese crew to take cover. Behind him, Reaper 2 and 3 were attacking the second cargo ship with identical results. Reaper 4, 5, and 6 engaged the third cargo vessel. Within 90 seconds, 3 Japanese cargo ships were burning catastrophically. The destroyers attempted to respond, but their fire control solutions were impossible at such close range and low altitude. By the time their guns tracked the attacking aircraft, the B-25 seconds were already past and accelerating away. The destroyers fired frantically at retreating targets, scoring no hits. Lana circled at 5,000 feet to assess damage. All 3 attacked cargo ships were clearly lost. One was already listing severely, obviously taking on water from hull breaches. The other 2 were burning with such intensity that their superstructures were glowing red. Reaper elements, this is lead. Reform on me. We're making a second pass. The destroyers had moved to shield the 3 remaining cargo ships, but this left them vulnerable to exactly the kind of attack Lana's team had just executed. The 6 B-25 seconds descended back to wave-top level and approached from a different vector. This time the Japanese were prepared and waiting. Anti-aircraft fire was intense and accurate, but prepared or not, they had no effective counter to aircraft attacking at 280 miles per hour from 50 feet altitude. Reaper elements attacked in rapid succession. Murphy's aircraft took hits in the port wing but continued the attack run, his 8 nose guns shredding a destroyer's bridge structure. The skip bombs he released struck the destroyer amidships, and the warship began taking on water immediately. The 4th cargo ship attempted to evade by turning hard to port, but this only presented a larger target profile. Reaper 5 and 6 attacked from opposite sides simultaneously, catching the cargo ship in a crossfire. The vessel's entire deck became an inferno. Total engagement time, 4 minutes and 20 seconds. When the B-25 seconds withdrew and climbed to safe altitude, The damage assessment was overwhelming. Japanese cargo ships destroyed or sinking, 4, representing approximately 5,500 tons of supplies lost. Japanese destroyer damaged and withdrawing, 1. Cargo ships fleeing back toward Rabaul, heavily damaged, 2. Japanese infantry troops killed, or drowned, estimated 800 to 900 men. American aircraft lost, 0. American casualties, 3 wounded from anti-aircraft fire, none critical. The strike had been devastatingly, almost unbelievably successful. When the Reapers landed back at Port Moresby at 1,045 hours, General Kenny was waiting on the tarmac. Lana climbed down from his aircraft, his flight suit soaked with sweat, his hands still shaking from adrenaline. Kenny's first question was direct. Did it work? Sir, we destroyed 4 cargo ships and crippled a destroyer in less than 5 minutes. The strafer configuration worked exactly as Major Gunn predicted. Better than predicted. The Japanese had no effective counter to our tactics. Kenny turned to his intelligence officer. Get reconnaissance aircraft over the Vitiaz Strait immediately. I want confirmation and photographs of every ship we hit. The reconnaissance B-17 returned at 1,400 hours with photographs that would become legendary in 5th Air Force history. 4 Japanese cargo ships were visible in various states of destruction. 2 had capsized and sank, 1 was burning and clearly doomed, the 4th was dead in the water and listing at 35 degrees. Debris and oil covered miles of ocean surface. Kenny studied the photographs in silence, then called his operations officer. How many more modified B-25 seconds can we field within 1 week? Sir, with the 3 modification centers running continuously, we can have 18 strafer-configured aircraft operational by January 12th. Make it happen. I want every operational B-25 inches theater converted to this configuration within 30 days. And I want strike missions planned against every known Japanese convoy route. From this point forward, no Japanese ship moves in these waters without being attacked. Major Gunn was summoned to headquarters that evening. Kenny's message was brief but profound. Pappy, you've just changed the course of this campaign. That convoy was carrying enough supplies to sustain Japanese operations at Lae for 2 months. Now those supplies are on the ocean floor. More importantly, you've given us a weapon system that the Japanese cannot counter. I'm recommending you for the Distinguished Service Cross, and I'm promoting you to Lieutenant Colonel effective immediately. But Gunn's response revealed his pragmatic focus. Sir, with respect, I don't need medals. I need more mechanics, more tools, and authorization to train every B-25 crew in theater on these tactics. We've proven the concept. Now we need to scale it. Over the next 14 days, the transformation accelerated with stunning speed. By January 20th, 1943, 24 B-25 seconds had been modified to the strafer configuration. 5 more strike missions had been flown against Japanese convoys. The results were consistent and catastrophic for Japan. Mission January 8th, target convoy near Buna. 3 cargo ships destroyed, 1 damaged. American losses. 1 B-25 damaged, returned to base. Mission January 12th, target convoy off Cape Ward Hunt. 2 cargo ships destroyed, 2 turned back. American losses, 0. Mission January 15th, target convoy approaching Salamaua. 4 cargo ships destroyed, 1 destroyer sunk. American losses, 1 B-25, destroyed by concentrated anti-aircraft fire. Crew killed. Mission January 18th, target convoy near Gasmata. 3 cargo ships destroyed. American losses, 0. In 18 days of operations, modified B-25 seconds had destroyed or damaged 17 Japanese cargo ships, representing approximately 28,000 tons of supplies. American losses, 2 aircraft, 12 men killed. The kill ratio had reversed completely. Instead of losing 6 aircraft for every ship destroyed, the Americans were now destroying 8 ships for every aircraft lost. Japanese naval command in Rabaul was in crisis. Vice Admiral Gunichi Mikawa sent an urgent report to Tokyo on January 22nd. Convoy operations to New Guinea have become untenable. American bomber attacks using new low-altitude tactics are destroying cargo vessels faster than they can be replaced. In 3 weeks, we have lost 17 merchant ships. This rate of attrition will exhaust available shipping within 60 days. Request immediate reinforcement of destroyer escorts and reconsideration of supply routes. But reinforcing escorts was impossible. Japan didn't have spare destroyers to allocate, and alternative supply routes didn't exist. The geography of New Guinea forced all shipping through predictable straits and channels, exactly where American aircraft could intercept them. Lieutenant Commander Masatake Okumiya, a Japanese naval staff officer, wrote in his diary, "The American tactics have evolved dramatically. They attack at wave-top altitude with devastating forward firepower. Our anti-aircraft guns cannot engage effectively. Our fighters cannot intercept at such low altitudes with sufficient speed. The cargo ships are helpless. This is not combat, it is slaughter." By February 1, 1943, Japanese convoy operations to New Guinea had effectively ceased. No cargo ship captain would volunteer for runs to Lae or Salamaua. The Japanese military attempted to use destroyers as fast transports, the famous Tokyo Express runs that had been successful in the Solomon Islands, but even destroyers proved vulnerable to the strafer B-25 seconds. The Battle of the Bismarck Sea in early March 1943 would demonstrate the full maturity of the new tactics. A major Japanese convoy attempted to reinforce Lae. 8 cargo ships and 8 destroyer escorts carrying 6,900 troops. 5th Air Force attacked with 28 strafer-configured B-25 seconds supported by conventional bombers and fighters. The result was annihilation. All 8 cargo ships were destroyed. 4 destroyers were sunk. Approximately 3,000 Japanese troops drowned. American losses: 1 B-25 destroyed, 4 aircraft damaged. General Douglas MacArthur sent a message to Washington. The air weapon has proven decisive in denying enemy reinforcement. 5th Air Force tactics have eliminated Japanese ability to conduct seaborne supply operations. Ground operations in New Guinea are now viable. The tactical revolution had strategic consequences. By April 1943, Japanese garrisons at Lae, Salamaua, and other New Guinea positions were isolated and withering. Without resupply, they couldn't sustain operations. Australian and American ground forces began systematic advances that would eventually retake all of New Guinea. Major Paul Gunn continued refining and improving the strafer concept throughout 1943. By June, some B-25 seconds were being fitted with 12 forward-firing, 50-caliber guns. By September, experimental models carried a 75mm cannon in the nose, alongside machine guns, turning the medium bomber into a flying artillery piece. Captain Ed Larner flew 37 strafer missions before rotating home in August 1943. His final tally: 11 Japanese cargo ships destroyed, 3 destroyers damaged, 0 losses in his immediate flight. He was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross with 2 oak leaf clusters. Master Sergeant Jack Stover, who had installed the guns in that first modified B-25, oversaw the conversion of 187 aircraft before the war ended. He liked to say, "We didn't just modify bombers, we invented a new type of warfare." The strafer B-25 concept spread beyond the Pacific. Modified aircraft were deployed to the Mediterranean, where they devastated German shipping and coastal targets in Italy and southern France. By 1944, nearly 40% of all B-25 Mitchells in combat theatres worldwide had been modified to some variant of the strafer configuration. Japanese General Hitoshi Imamura, who commanded forces in the Southwest Pacific, was captured in 1945. During interrogation, he was asked which American weapon system had been most effective against Japanese operations. His answer was immediate: "The low-altitude attack bombers, you called them strafer B-25 seconds. We had no effective countermeasure. They destroyed our supply lines, isolated our garrisons, and made reinforcement impossible." After January 1943, we were fighting a defensive campaign with no hope of resupply. The war in New Guinea was lost not in ground combat but from the air by those aircraft. The transformation of the B-25 Mitchell from conventional medium bomber to devastating ship killer represented one of the most successful tactical innovations of World War II. It emerged not from formal military doctrine or high-level planning, but from a maintenance officer, an attack pilot, and a gunnery sergeant who refused to accept that 14% loss rates and 2% success rates were acceptable. In 72 hours of work in a maintenance hangar at Port Moresby, they had created a weapon system that would sink hundreds of enemy ships, save thousands of American lives, and alter the strategic balance in the Pacific theater. The lesson transcended the specific technology. Superior tactics can transform adequate equipment into dominant weapon systems. Innovation often comes from those closest to the problem, the operators and maintainers who understand both the limitations and possibilities of their tools. And sometimes the most effective solution is not to fight the war your enemy expects, but to rewrite the rules entirely. By war's end, strafer-configured B-25 seconds had destroyed or damaged over 400 Japanese ships, countless coastal installations, and thousands of enemy vehicles and positions. The aircraft that entered the war as a standard medium bomber had become the most versatile attack platform in the theater. In December 1942, Japanese convoy commanders laughed at the ineffective American bombing attacks. By February 1943, they refused to sail because facing strafer B-25 seconds meant near-certain death. The thunder of 8 50-caliber machine guns at 300 yards had spoken, and the waters of the Southwest Pacific belonged to those who had learned that sometimes the greatest victories come not from new weapons, but from using existing weapons in revolutionary new ways. The B-25 Mitchell had found its true calling not as a bomber dropping ordnance from safe altitude, but as a hunter that struck like lightning at wave-top level, too fast to evade, too lethal to survive. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now and don't forget to subscribe.